What's up, everybody? Unrested here. I'm back in my little playground choo-choo train. That's what I'm filming in here. People always ask me why I film stuff in here. The lighting's pretty good. Got a lot of natural light coming through the windows here. And I like this kind of red background. I don't know, I enjoy it. And it kind of keeps me in an area where the sound's not too bad. I can still be outside, see a little bit of the outdoors for the day. I don't like to film indoors quite as much because it's just something that's too easy for me to do every day, stay inside of my house and film. I want to try and get out a little bit, walk around, see the world. So, what are we talking about today? It's a bit of a ramble video, and it's a bit of a ramble video because of emails and messages and just kind of conversations I'm having recently. And they're interesting to me, and that's what I like to make videos about, what I'm interested in. And current topics that you guys are talking about too, which is of course important to me too. I want to, of course, deliver videos that the viewer wants to see. I don't want to just go off on tangents and stuff that is completely esoteric to my life, because let's be honest, people don't want to listen about very niche things about your own life that they don't understand. And so let me just jump into what the topic is a minute into this video while I've already rambled on about absolutely nothing. So three different things really, and it's kind of related to Japan, of course, because most of my videos are, and related to kind of stuff happening in the Western world too. And that is kind of I would say, the divergent paths of some different social movements such as hikikomori in Japan, otaku in Japan, otaku abroad, which the Western definition means the borrow word of it, because now it's becoming a borrow word. And MGTOW, which is men going their own way. And I'm back on this subject again today because of multiple messages I got yesterday when I posted my JFAQ on MGTOW is not hikikomori. First off, I want to apologize. I messed up slightly. I said that MGTOW was a men's right movement. It is not a men's right movement. Further researching MGTOW, I've come to understand that oftentimes the two seem to be intertwined when people are talking about movements men's are making socially, but it's not necessarily a men's right movement, or MRA, men's right activism. So I don't want to get that confused. I myself have a lot to learn still about what that whole MGTOW thing is. I obviously am not MGTOW because for number one, I'm married. I have kids. I'm very happily married. I'm very happy with my relationship, and have been through many relationships in the past, but I've only been married one time, and I'm still married to that same person. So I think that's going pretty good. I'm happy every day. So that being said, coming from, and this is a neutral perspective, I'm not putting any judgment on anything out there, any kind of movement, feminist movement, men's movement. Like I've said in the past, I'm a humanist. I'm for all humans. I'm just a balance of caring about everybody. That's what I want to see everybody, live long and prosper, to quote a late Leonard Nimoy. R.I.P. And I want to go on with kind of separating these three different trichotomies, if you will, of what is otaku, what is hikikomori, and what is MGTOW, and how are they different. Because often, like I said recently, I'm getting the email either that people tell me that they're MGTOW and hikikomori, yet they still work a job, which means they're not really hikikomori, because if you're leaving your house to work a regular everyday 9-to-5 job, or even a part-time job, you're most likely 100% not hikikomori. Hikikomori do not work jobs. The only jobs that any hikikomori have ever worked, and some have been very successful, is day trader via computer. I guess any other computer type job that you can do where you stay inside your room and just make money via computer. So I should rephrase that. Hikikomori do not work any job that requires them to leave their house and go to another location. There, that makes it better, because there is actually one hikikomori who got super famous and he became a very rich day trader. So you go, hikikomori guy. And also please realize hikikomori is not men. Hikikomori is men and women, and it actually is becoming more of a problem with women too in Japan. It is strongly a Japanese male problem as of right now in Japan, but the female rate is slowly climbing too. So there are both. It's not seen as only a male thing. Same with otaku. There are otaku girls too. And you know what? Let's start with that word otaku first. First of all, I want to let a lot of people know that they're getting the word wrong. Otaku, I guess now that it's become a borrowed word in the Western sense, pretty much just means a nerd, into like Japanese nerdy stuff as anime, games, JRPGs, etc., etc. I mean, that's really a subjective thing to say that it's nerdy. I personally enjoy quite a bit of that stuff, and I don't really consider myself like this massive antisocial nerd guy. I guess the definition of nerd, though, has changed with time, too. But really, let's get back to that word otaku in its Japanese sense. It literally means mania. It means you're a maniac for something. So if you just say you're otaku, that doesn't mean you are a nerd. That doesn't mean you are all about anime, all about games. You need to actually say what you are otaku about. Because if you just walked up to a Japanese person and you got into a conversation like, yeah, I'm really otaku, they'd be like, nani otaku? Like, what otaku are you? So, for example, you could be Gundam otaku. You love those giant robots that fight in space, the Gundam. Of course, it's a much more complicated plot than that. There's politics and everything going on, but I'm reporting it in a way that would be viewed by those who are not into Gundam. They would just be like, oh, robots fighting in space. And you would be like, I'm a Gundam otaku. Or maybe you're really into Gantz, the manga Gantz. You'd be like, I'm a Gantz otaku. Or Keion or Usagi Drop or any of these anime about, junior high schools in Japan. You would say the title of that, and then you would say, I'm that otaku. So I think that's one thing, first of all, people don't understand, is that when they say they're otaku, this doesn't mean they're like this nerdy, antisocial person locked up in a room. Especially now in Japan, the otaku, the whole vision of otaku is someone who can very easily function in today's society, who can be a salaryman, who can be an office lady, who can, even work their way up and become a CEO of a business. I mean, for Christ's sakes, the maker of Pokemon, he's considered an otaku. The guy who owns Game Freak, he's considered an otaku. The guy who made the game Deadly Premonition, he's considered otaku. Those guys are doing pretty well now, making pretty good money and running a really good business. They're not this socially isolated nerd huddled into their room staring into a Nintendo DS as their only source of light in that darkened room. So I don't want people to get that idea when they say otaku or they compare themselves to MGTOW is otaku. They're like, oh, well, wouldn't MGTOW be otaku because they're obsessed with this lifestyle or they're obsessed with only doing this one thing? No, I still wouldn't categorize it as that either. So, and then we move on to hikikomori, and I want to get onto that one next. And once again, hikikomori, by the medical measurement in Japan, is someone who stays locked up inside of their own room for 6 months or more. And during that time, they're literally like not coming out of their room. The most I've ever heard about is some of them who lock themselves up in apartments where their parents don't live, or they lock themselves in houses where their parents don't live to come take care of them. They'll run out like at the middle of the night, like when it's like 2 a.m. or 3 a.m., I should say the early morning, not the middle of the night, to just grab a bite to eat at a conveni, which is a convenience store. It's like a 7-Eleven, a Family Mart, a Lawson's. And that's out of just absolute desperation. They have to do that to survive. But that's their only interaction with the outside world. And even that very small point of walking out for one time during the night to grab a small meal, usually like cup noodle or something like that, a bento box, that's huge social anxiety for them. If they don't have to do that, they won't. There's been even reports of some who would order via computer like a giant stack or like a giant Costco, which is a store that sells everything in bulk, if you don't know what Costco is, of cup noodle or just giant bulk of some kind of like non-spoiling bento box. So they don't have to leave for a very, very long amount of time. So that's again not MGTOW. I understand their disconnection with society where they say like, look, what I'm doing is I'm cutting myself off from female interaction, cutting myself off of any interaction that I don't necessarily need in my life, ones that I don't find efficient. And for those of you who don't know what MGTOW is, because I'm suddenly bringing this up and I'm not like a MGTOW channel or anything, MGTOW is literally means men going their own way. It's a movement of men who have decided to forego thinking about marriage, getting into deep relationships. I don't know if they totally, I guess you guys who are MGTOW can confirm this for me or not. I don't know if they've completely thrown off dating, if they totally don't believe in dating at all. Some of them I've heard are like yeah, I'll date, but then I'll get a prepaid phone so a girl can never learn my real phone number, or I'll hide my email address and stuff like that. For the most part, what they're doing is trying to cut off the deepest parts of their social interactions with the female community. And this is kind of like their envision of fighting back against what they see as a government system that is constantly in favor of females in the sense of getting married, of being attacked for domestic violence and things like this. Now, I'm not agreeing with any of this. I'm not disagreeing with any of this. I'm just giving you an objective view of what I've learned about MGTOW. Please do not say that I have these same beliefs or anything. The same with feminism. A lot of feminism is about that men are overly controlling. The patriarchy of men controls everything from top tier job positions. That men have a huge control of the video game world, which is recently a huge issue in the Gamergate fight that's still going on to this day, which again I take no side in. I don't want to get involved in that. My channel has nothing to do with video games really, so I don't see any reason for getting myself involved in that or taking a side on that. Plus I don't want all the mudslinging back and forth. I don't want that to hit my channel. Let's be honest. Let's be 100% honest with why I would take sides on that. But a lot of the feminists during this time are very angry about, women being threatened in the game world, the way they see women treated in video games. For example, Anita Sarkeesian talks about how you can kill prostitutes in the video game Hitman. And of course, there's a lot more that could be talked about that, of course, than people from the other side say, well, look, she doesn't even play the games, like, she stole the footage that she used as an example to talk about her feminist viewpoints. So you're constantly having this battle go back and forth. And I think what's different with the MGTOW version of this, it's not, now again, it's not men's rights. It's not as, I guess, strongly anti-feminist, I guess, or it's not as strongly, I should say, taking a side, as men's rights is taking a side against feminists, and feminists is taking a side against men's rights. Usually they're always constantly clashing. I would say MGTOW is down here kind of like, well, we understand what both of you are doing, but we're not really trying to get in the middle of that. We're trying to completely be a neutral party and stay out of that. And they're saying that because they do this, because they stay away from both, because they pull in, and like hikikomori, which literally means to pull in, because they pull in from society and from those fights and from interactions with female, that they too are hikikomori. But again, that's not true either, because usually these guys are contributing parts of society. They are paying taxes by working jobs, whether they want to or not. I mean, you're forced to by the government, literally by the threat of being put in jail, or I guess at the very least, I guess you won't be put in jail for not paying your taxes, but you could be audited, and there's a hell to go through. But there is things like, if you don't pay child support, you could go to jail. And so that's another thing that they cite as a reason why they choose MGTOW. They're like, well, if I get into the complications of marriage, I have the possibility of the complications of children, and then I get into the complications of divorce, and with divorce comes the possibility of having to pay child support or alimony and things like that. And that's why they say, I'm withdrawing from this society that has all these types of rules like this, and that makes me hikikomori. That's what they're writing to me, at least in my inbox. That's what I'm getting in my comments and messages sometimes in Facebook and YouTube and stuff. And I want to reiterate the fact that this is not hikikomori. Hikikomori may have some of those same views as you in MGTOW, but the very definition of hikikomori by a medical measurement from within Japan, where the word originated, is someone who withdraws inside of their room or their house for 6 months or more, and they do not come out to interact with anyone aside from, like, maybe their mom drops off food at their door and they open up the door and they take that and they eat it. They don't work a 9-to-5 job. They don't work even a part-time job. They can't work. They can't interact with basic parts of society. They can't do basic things, like I said, even the struggle of going to a store to buy a small snack to survive, literally for the nourishment you need, is a struggle for them. So that's where I really want to separate these three different things. Otaku is someone who's a maniac for something. They're a maniac for either a game, a book, a TV series, a movie, whatever. It doesn't matter. They're a maniac for one selected thing. And that's it. That's the only kind of thing that maybe society might feel is odd. They might be like, well, wow, I can't believe you're so obsessed with that. but usually they can function very easily and very normally within normal society. And for the most part, this day and age, it's not that strange to be obsessed with a certain anything. For example, I would say I'm probably a horror otaku. I'm really into anything and everything horror. I try to watch every single horror movie I can, every horror story I can, every splatterpunk novel I can, everything. So I would say I'm a horror otaku, but for the most part, I mean, it doesn't really affect anything in my society. I don't come to work and try to teach little kids that I work with at my kindergarten about the horror movies I watch. That's where it would get into maybe something that people would see as a mental illness or something, a problem with your social interaction, which that's not otaku related. Sometimes otakus do tend to inhabit certain things where they get overly excited about these things that they're into, and maybe they do talk about it to certain people that are not as interested, and maybe that's where they get this kind of odd sort of overly socially awkward disposition from. But for the most part, that's society's label. That isn't the actual and normal everyday otaku who's obsessed with a certain something. They usually have an obsession. It's within a healthy boundary that does not affect their life. It does not affect their job, their work, and their contribution to society in general. Hikikomori, their illness does affect their contributions to society. It does affect their health, I would say their mental health at least, and it can even affect their physical health, I think, because it can have them end up locked in a place where they're not getting the proper nutrition, even the proper sunlight. You need vitamin D from sunlight each and every day. A lot of these people become extremely pale, they got rings under their eyes, their sleep patterns become messed up because they're either not sleeping during the nighttime or sleeping during the day. They have their circadian rhythm fall completely out of funk, and things can happen like that. There's just to name a few. So this is where it's very different. MGTOW people, I don't think you would want to even claim any connection to all those types of physical and mental problems that would come with being hikikomori. Hence, I think that's just another reason right there to reiterate the fact that you are not hikikomori. Now, those three things said, kind of diversified and into their three different categories, I want to talk just a little bit about my own personal philosophies and stuff on, I guess, female-male interactions, starting a relationship, and where that can take you in the future and how you should handle it. And why I stay completely neutral to all these different things as far as MGTOW, feminism, male rights. Why I'm just saying I'm a humanist. Yes, I believe in starting a relationship, no matter if that be male to male, female to female, male to female, whatever. I think they are a good part of your life. I think they give your life a lot more meaning. But I also think there are a lot of work, and I also think there's something that oftentimes the reason people can be turned off by starting a relationship long-term with a person is because either number one, they jump into relationships too quickly, or number two, they don't analyze the different things they want from a relationship or why they're going into the relationship, or number three, they're love struck, which is, very common problem. It happens mostly with younger people. I can definitely admit to the fact that I myself had these same kind of love-struck feelings where I would look at a girl right away and fall in love just by the way she looked or talked or acted or her personality or whatever. And then later when I got into a deeper relationship with her, I found out that that wasn't so. She wasn't the person I had dreamed up in my mind. And I'm sure vice versa can be said for women about men. They thought some guy was their knight in shining armor. When they really got to know his true personality, when that first 8 months went past and the true person came out, which often it takes about 8 months on average, it can be less or more, when that shell's finally cracked and we see who's really underneath, sometimes it's not always the person we dreamed up. And I think a lot of us, as we grow older and as we date more and as we experience more relationships, we come to understand this, right? We come to understand the fact that the first person we see, the first person we meet is not the actual person. It's a person that they feel is most presentable to us when they first meet us, and this is not to try and hide anything, this is not to try and be deceptive, this is try to make people comfortable, okay? For example, I have very strong liberal views, I have very strong atheist views, but to bring those up when I first meet someone could be seen as very confrontational. Most of my family, most of my cousins, uncles, aunts, even my mother and father are very religious. They still regularly attend church and are, strong believing in the Catholic faith. Some of them are deep into other different Christian faiths. If they were someone that wasn't related to me that I didn't know, and the very first time I met them, I just suddenly started attacking religion, that would be extremely confrontational, aggressive, and just uncalled for, really. It would be no different than, the Bible thumping, proselytizer who tries to cram religion down your throat and ask you if you're going to heaven and hell. I mean, that's just a complete hypocrisy of anyone who would call themselves an atheist and say that they're against proselytizing if they do the same type of thing via atheism. So what I do is, of course, I come across as the most presentable person I can be for the first time I meet a person. There's many, many first times I meet people. For example, every time I have one of these YouTube meetups, I've got to meet new people who either watch my channel, have their own new channel, just came to Japan, or just started their own channel. And when I meet them, I really actually want to get to know them, and to do that, I try to make them as comfortable as possible so that they'll open up to me. And by doing this, of course, I don't show all shades of myself. I don't show all opinions of myself on especially topics such as politics, science, and religion, because anything that you get into with those can get very controversial very fast. Mostly we want to just find out who that person is, right? And this doesn't mean I'm starting a relationship with every single person I meet, male and female. This just means I'm getting to know them, and this is how any start of relationship starts. It's you getting to know them, but at the same time, with you both getting to know each other, you're only showing each other the most presentable version of each other. So that's usually why dates, that's why relationships, that's why, falling in love starts out so great. Everything's wonderful, because you're still that very presentable person to each other. Okay? Oftentimes, and this is just an average that I've noticed with dating in my own past years, is that it takes about 8 months or so for that shell to crack. Sometimes less, I've seen it happen in just a few weeks. People are like, well, I found out who they really were, and it wasn't who I was in love with to begin with. But I'm going to say 8 months. Everything to completely break off, fall away, and that true person to be seen by both people on both sides. And that can be, you can find out even better things about them. I'm not saying it always cracks away and you're like, holy shit, this person's an evil asshole. It can crack away. You can be like, oh my God, they are a shining example of humanity itself, You can find out how truly, compassionate a person is. I'm just saying you don't get to know who that person truly is until time passes, until they feel 100% comfortable breaking down that best representation of themselves and showing you the true self, who they really are, what their true feelings are, what their real opinions are, how they really handle a relationship. And that's when shit gets real, okay? But at the same time, if you hold yourself back from that, if you say, well, I'm afraid all these people, when they finally break down that best representation shell, that the true person that they show me is going to be that ultimate evil, that's going to be that manipulative, deceptive, deceiving person who is going to take my money, is going to try and get me married and have kids and take my money and make me pay alimony, or for the woman that they're going to get married to this guy and he is going to be this abusive asshole who, wants power control over everything in the relationship, is super over controlling. To assume that stuff before you actually get to know that aspect of the person is just going to destroy any chances of you ever, having any faith in humanity in general, not just any relationship, but just humanity in general. To judge everyone you ever meet by past relationships is unwise. At the same time, we do tend to have these magnetic personalities that keep bringing back those same type of people to us. In the past, if you've dated people like this and you find again and again, I keep dating the assholes, for both men and women, I'm not saying this goes for just one in general, or for men to men and women to women, and gay and lesbian relationships as well. Those type of people who come to you and always talk about God, I can't find a good guy. When am I going to find a good guy? Or I can't find a good girl. I always get the cheaters, or, the same with the guys too. There's a lot of guys who are cheaters too, or abusive, either mentally or physically. And it can happen from both sides, don't get me wrong. If someone keeps complaining to you that they find those kind of assholes, or that they're finding the people who they find out everything they've ever told them is a lie, or they're really deceptive, or, just some... And they keep saying, why do I keep finding Mr. Wrong or Mrs. Wrong, or the wrong type of person, the one that I'm not trying to link up with, the one that I'm not trying to start this future long-term relationship with? It's something that you've got to take a look of yourself. You've got to stop and take a look at, why is the magnetism that I have constantly attract this type of person? What am I doing? What am I saying? Because if it happened once, that could be a fluke. If it happens twice, it may still be a fluke. But if you're finding this again and again and again and again, you're hitting up these same type of people. Is it the crowd you're dating in? Is it the group of friends that you're dating in? Is it the clique? Is it the the area you're hanging out in, I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you, in the past I used to be into all this like hipster stuff and things back when I was young. I was into all this like indie crowd and you know, there's some awesome fucking people in that crowd. There's some awesome people in the metal crowd and stuff. But you also get some really fucked up people in almost any crowd you're in. And there was the fucked up groups in those clubs too, you know, there was these fucked up cliques in those clubs too. And then I was in cross country and I was in, you know, the whole jock crowd too in high school, and I dated girls within that too. And there's fucked up crowds in there. So no crowd is free. If people are going to tell you, oh, only girls with tattoos or only guys with tattoos and piercings or, you know, the fucked up ones, you need to find a conservative religious ones. Trust me, there are some super fucked up and conservative and religious ones too, you know, that can be super controlling, that can, you know, believe in the patriarchy and try to control the whole marriage and everything. There's very controlling religious guys, there's very controlling religious women, you know, there's very controlling conservative ones. There's fucked up groups within everything. So you gotta look and see, am I in that fucked up group? Am I attracting the people within this? Am I stuck in this rotation of just these fucked up people? And if you are, maybe you need to look for a new group, a new area, a new clique to hang out with. Because let's be honest, we're constantly in cliques, we're constantly in clans, we're constantly in groups of people. We're a civilization because we naturally huddle into masses. We naturally come together. The reason it is seen as being a mental illness when someone becomes hikikomori or isolated from society is because it's painful. Those people are not super happy. Those people are not like, yay, every day is awesome that I'm hikikomori and stuck inside my house and can't interact with anyone without social anxiety. That's painful for them. Those people are in pain. And they're in pain because naturally as humans we want to interact. There's been polls, many polls taken in the past, I don't have any statistics to back this up or sites I'm going to suddenly quote or anything, that the saddest and loneliest people, I guess the people, well, we know they're lonely, but the saddest people, the people with the greatest reported depression are those living on their own, okay? The happiest are married couples without children, okay? Next on the list, like in between both of those, is married people with children. And I can completely understand why a lot of those people married with children are not the happiest. It's usually because in the younger years of that child's life, we deal with a lot of stress. We do. We've got so much stuff to do. We've got so much to take care of. We're constantly running around. We don't have a lot of time for ourselves. And so it doesn't mean we're necessarily unhappy, but we're probably not as happy as we could be because we don't have enough time for ourselves. But that's not going to be forever. The thing that keeps us going is that we know when we had that child was that child's life became our life. It became the life that we need to take care of. And we're going to have to do that for at least 18 years, but the responsibilities become less and less as we get closer to 18, right? You know, I'm feeding kids and I'm changing their diapers now, but I'm not going to be doing that even when they're as, you know, old as 5, right? So that keeps us going. And I think that's something else we got to look at within the relationship term too. I hear people talk about how they don't want to start a relationship because they don't want to get caught into things like, for example, the woman says they don't want to get caught with a guy who is, you know, controlling or DV or, you know, maybe just overly too powerful within the relationship, constantly try and control everything. And men talk about they don't want to get in the relationship because now women can, you know, receive alimony, can, you know, receive payments for their children, you know, child support, or, you know, they can call the cops and say it's domestic violence and nothing ever really happened. Well, okay. The people that are doing that kind of stuff are the fucked up people I'm still talking about, and that's why you need to go out and date, so that when you finally do come to a decision on who you want to spend the rest of your life with, it is not one of these people. Okay? We live longer. Society lives longer and longer now. We have plenty of time to date, and because we have plenty of time to date, because we have plenty of time to meet women, to meet men, to meet, you know, whoever our mate may be for our life, whoever we choose for our life mate, we have plenty of time to find out what we love about those people and what we hate about those people, dislike about those people, cannot live with those people, cannot co-inhabit with those people. And if you do not take the time to go through multiple dates to do this, and I'm not saying you need to be a slut, you need to go out there and be, you know, some gigolo guy and, you know, fuck everything you see, or be some girl that fucks everything they see. I'm saying you need to be a person who dates. You date because you want to learn about people. You want to learn about who you are and who they are, and what you like and what you don't like, and what they like and what they don't like, and what you can stand to live with and what you can't stand to live with. What decisions those people make that you can enjoy and agree with, and what decisions those people make that you completely don't see eye to eye with. Because if you're going through all these people and starting to file down those different aspects and check off a list of what you like, you're going to eventually find the person you can live out the rest of your life with. And that doesn't mean things are going to be 100% perfect. If you're looking for that, you're never ever going to be happy or married or have a life partner or anything like that. You're going to end up very, very alone, because no such thing exists. There is no such thing as a 100% perfect, non-fight, non-argument, non-verbal battle relationship. There will be hills and valleys, and that's because that's naturally a part of who we are as humans. We naturally have to stake claim to who our own opinions are, what we believe in, and we can do that in a way that's constructive to a relationship we're in, so that that other person can see what we like, what we enjoy, you know, what they can do to better facilitate us and what we can do to better facilitate them. It's a constant compromise. That's what marriage is. That's what relationships are. That's what long-term life partner relationships deal with. And if you can't get out there and date and meet enough people to do that, you'll never learn about all those aspects, and you'll just give up. And I understand where this MGTOW movement is coming from. I've seen guys get screwed over. I have seen women get screwed over in relationships too. So don't tell me it's just you guys, okay? I've seen women get totally fucked over too. All their shit stolen, ripped apart, pissed on, thrown out in the street. Well, it's crazy shit that guys have done too. So no side is, you know, innocent. Let's be 100% honest here. And then they give up. They 100% give up on any. They're like, you know what? Long-term relationship is not for me. Marriage is not for me. Kids are not for me. The future of a long-term relationship is not for me. That's because you've just given up. And it's okay. Take a break. You know what? Take a long break. Think about it. Get to know who you are better. Get to know what you want more. Get to know what you want out of a relationship more. And, you know, maybe there are some people who decide a relationship just isn't for me. That's okay. There will be some of those people who live out their entire life without a long-term relationship. There's nothing wrong with that. But to have the feeling, to have the craving and desire to have a long-term relationship, and to deny that for the rest of your life because you believe there's too much danger or too much loss associated with it, is robbing yourself of a lot of happiness. There is a lot of happiness. I want to explain to you the fact that people who are married long-term and don't seem like they're super lovey-dovey, that doesn't mean they're not in love. That doesn't mean they aren't happy. Any relationship you start out with starts usually hot and heavy. If you're really into each other and everything, it can start out pretty hot and heavy, especially the younger you are, the more hot and heavy it starts out. You know, you have this fantasy version of that person in your head, and you're lusting after them, and everything about them is new. Everything from their personalities, likes, dislikes, what you connect with, and even down to their body and physical features and things you admire intimately as well. And that's an awesome part of it. But those things eventually fade away, especially the physical aspects. And I'm not just saying over time due to age. I'm saying, you know, the excitement of, you know, the intimate aspects of that relationship does fade. Of course, it's going to happen with any long-term relationship. It's not going to be, you know, this great excitement that it used to always be, because this is natural human instinct. A lot of times throughout the past and the history of, you know, humans procreating, they were instinctually going after always finding a new mate in order to spread as much seed as possible and literally fuck the earth and, you know, spread human civilization everywhere. That's how we've become super populated in some areas of the world, and some places hyper populated to a point where population needs to be controlled. And that was okay for a time. That worked out. We've gone far enough in civilization now where the benefits of a long-term marriage far outshine the benefits of going around and spreading seed everywhere and spreading multiple children over multiple, you know, bastardized marriages and things like that. Now it's gotten to a point where you can find a lot more happiness and stability in the civilization of in eternal unity, you know, till death. And I'm not saying marriage needs to be signed, a contract needs to be signed. You know, the governmental version of making sure you declare who you're married to for the rest of your life needs to be signed. I think that's bullshit too. I don't think you don't need any kind of contractual agreement. If you want to live with that person in the same house together for as long as you're both alive, that is your life mate, and that is a long-term relationship, and that is good enough for me. And I think you can get the same happiness out of that. But the thing is, people who are afraid to try that will never receive that happiness. People who are afraid to try dating, to try multiple partners, to go through all the things that they don't like and do like to find what they want perfect, is never going to be, it's not going to find the highest happiness that life as a human can give us, right? And that is, if you look at the pyramid of, you know, needs in life, it starts at the bottom with food and things like that, water, of course, shelter, and the top starts to be like love, and then even above that starts to get into philanthropy, where we start to help other people, okay? And I think as humans, our main goal, our meaning to life, because I don't believe there's anything beyond this one. I don't think there's, you know, something that we're preparing to do better because we're preparing to enter, you know, heaven or the afterlife or any bullshit like that. Sorry, it's just not my belief. Our only goal, our only meaning to life is to find our meaning to life. And almost always, whatever that kind of niche is, for example, for me, I feel like my meaning to life is, you know, to become the best artist I can, to spread as much information as I can on the internet about Japan and stuff, to inject that into society, is to hopefully eventually one day help it. Like, I hope I'm helping people when I make these videos. I'm giving something a little bit back to society. And I'm at this point now where I can do this and happily make these videos and give a little bit back, because I'm past that point of the highest point on the pyramid of love. And that's where you start to get into philanthropy. That's why I start to do things like raise money for, like, my friend recently. I'm starting to do help him raise money for him to get the proper partnership visa, for him to marry his gay partner in Australia and get the proper visa, because that guy's Japanese, he's Australian. Australia charges way too much. They charge like over $7,000 for them to get married. I want to help them raise the money, because that's one way I can be philanthropic, since I'm already past that point in my life of achieving the love aspect of what I need for my, you know, hierarchy of needs. Now I'm into the philanthropy part. And don't you too want to eventually get to that part where you're in the philanthropy part, where you're giving meaning to your life by giving back to the life that other people live, that you are giving back to the future of the next generation? I'm not saying you necessarily have to have kids to do that. I'm just saying you need to give back to the society that's raised you up, that's brought you up, whether it was a horrible raising or a good raising. You need to give back to it, because if it was a horrible raising, well, then you probably think it needs to be improved. If it was a good raising, then don't you want to continue on all that goodness that you were given? And once we've reached that highest level of hierarchy of needs and love by getting married or having a life partner or living together with someone, then we can get into that. And if you never get up to that level, then you can't enjoy the philanthropic aspect of the highest level of the hierarchy of needs. And that's what I'm trying to proclaim. A lot of MGTOW are missing out on. A lot of women too who don't want to get into a marriage because they're afraid of that too. Or if they have some sort of movement that is equivalent to MGTOW, maybe I don't know about it. Please inform me in the comments below if there is. That's what you're missing out on too. That's what you're missing out on if you don't get into a long-term relationship. You're missing out on the highest level of hierarchy of needs, where you eventually start to give back to all those needs. And that's a beautiful thing. That's a wonderful feeling. I've never felt better in my life when I've given back. You know, the best drawing I've ever done, the best game I've ever played, you know, maybe the only thing I could possibly connect the best feelings I've ever had with in my life are like loving my children, giving my kids kiss goodnight, or like hugging them and like comforting them. But again, that's giving back to society. You're giving back to those kids that you're raising, that you're eventually going to put out into society by giving your own love. That's, again, coming back to the philanthropic aspect that came from eventually finding that eternal love that I could eventually marry and create a life with and start new life with. And again, that's another thing that you can give back to the world. And it's the only way, really. I mean, if you're like me and you don't believe in an afterlife, you don't believe in a heaven, you don't believe you continue on after this life, it is the only way you can be immortal too. I want you to think about that. When you create things in this world, when you create happiness or philanthropic things, or even projects, like if you could donate enough money to build a library, that's you living on past your life. That's as much as there's ever going to be of you. I know it's a tangible thing, it's an object, it's something you can touch, it's not spiritual or metaphysical, but that's your best chance to live and be immortal. Your kids, if you can have kids or adopt kids or raise kids or help somebody raise kids or instill morals in kids, that's you living past your life. When you die and that kid goes on to continue the morals or the teachings that you've learned from the love or even the lessons in life that you've gotten, that's you passing yourself on. That's the closest thing you're ever going to have to immortality. Okay, so it's another example of how you can live on and push past that level of love at the very top of hierarchy of needs and get into the philanthropic aspect of where you're giving back. And it may seem selfish. Some people may say, well, if you get into the fact that you just want to be immortal, doesn't that take away from the fact that it's philanthropic, since it means giving of yourself, taking away your selfishness and giving away? It can be both. And isn't that a beautiful thing? You can, selflessly give yourself away, give away your money, your things, donate to society, help the needy, feed the poor, teach a small children a moral lesson, or help them even with their homework, or learn a language or anything. And you're giving back, you're being philanthropic, and you're living on in that person. You're living on in that movement of kindness, that gesture of building society to a better point, that long after you've gone, you've done that one iota of thing, and maybe it's only made one iota of difference in some person's life in some small way, and push them into a whole new level of existence. You never know how you're going to change people when you talk to them. You never know how you're going to change people when you get into a relationship with them. You never know how you're going to change people and live on in immortality through the things that you teach people. And that's why I do these videos, and that's why I kind of got into this lesson today. I know it's been quite a long ramble that got almost near the metaphysical. Started out in a very base thing as, sexual partners, and got all the way up here into the metaphysical. But that's where I wanted to go today. I wanted to show you how you could climb this hierarchy through getting out there, meeting people, dating, getting to know people. I'm not saying any of these movements are wrong. Again, I'm not, maybe the only one I would say is like maybe a little bit, rough is hikikomori. It's not wrong, but I kind of feel bad. I want to see people like that get help because I feel like they're in pain. MGTOW otaku people, I don't think you're in pain. I don't think you're in any kind of mental illness or anything like that. I'm just letting you guys know about some of the beautiful things that come with relationships, okay? I'm Unarrested. If you like what you saw here today and you enjoyed my rambles, please like, comment, and subscribe. Have a good one.